I had never been the type to believe in ghost stories or anything supernatural, but that night at the motel, I still can't explain it. It was a stormy, late evening in mid-October when I found myself stranded in the middle of nowhere. My car had broken down, and my phone had died hours ago. I hadn't seen a soul for miles. So when I saw the neon sign flicker on in the distance, vacancy, I almost felt a sense of relief. The name of the place was Pinewood Motel. It was old, probably a relic from the 70s or earlier, and the exterior looked worn out with peeling paint and cracked windows. But at that point, I didn't care. I needed to sleep. I pulled into the gravel lot, and the rustling of the wind through the trees was the only sound around. I walked inside, and the bell above the door jingled loudly as I stepped into the dimly lit lobby. The air was musty, stale, like it hadn't been properly aired out in years. Behind the desk was a middle-aged man, thin, graying hair, a face that looked like he hadn't smiled in decades. He barely looked up from the register when I walked in, but eventually greeted me with a low, gravelly voice. "Need a room?" he asked. His eyes were cold, almost lifeless. "Yeah," I said, rubbing my neck. "Just for the night. My car broke down out on the highway. Room 9, at the end of the hall." He handed me the key. No small talk. Nothing more. As I walked toward the hall, I noticed the strange silence that hung in the air. No sounds of guests talking, no sounds of TVs or radios. Just stillness. The walls were a faded yellow with old wallpaper peeling in places. The flickering lights above me made it feel like the whole place was barely holding itself together. I reached room 9 and unlocked the door. The inside was just as outdated as the rest of the place: cheap carpet, a worn-out bedspread, and a small, ancient TV in the corner. But I didn't care. I threw my bag on the bed and walked into the bathroom, looking forward to a hot shower. That's when I noticed something odd. In the bathroom mirror, I saw a faint smudge in the reflection, a mark that didn't appear to be on the actual glass. I rubbed the mirror, but it didn't disappear. It was a handprint, smudged, faded, but unmistakably there. My stomach churned a little, but I shrugged it off. Maybe it was just the condensation from the bathroom. I stepped into the shower, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling, but the hairs on the back of my neck refused to settle. As the water poured over me, I thought I heard a sound like footsteps coming from the hallway. I quickly glanced out of the bathroom, expecting to see someone walking by, but the hall was empty. I tried to forget it and finished my shower, but the feeling of being watched only intensified. When I finally stepped out of the bathroom, I noticed something else. The door to the room was slightly ajar. It hadn't been when I went in. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I was sure I had locked it when I came in. It's one of those things you always check, right? I cautiously approached the door and peeked through the crack. No one was there. But the longer I stared into the darkness of the hallway, the more I started to feel like something was wrong. It wasn't the hotel, or the room, or even the strange handprint. It was the quiet. The dead silence that felt like it was swallowing everything around me. There was something else in the hotel with me, and it wasn't leaving anytime soon. The night seemed to stretch on forever. I locked the door again, double-checked the latch, and crawled into bed, trying to ignore the unease gnawing at me. I figured it was just my imagination, or maybe the isolation was starting to get to me. But every time I closed my eyes, the silence pressed in on me. It felt like the walls were closing in. I turned the TV on, hoping the noise would drown out the growing tension in the room. But the screen was just static, flickering and buzzing, offering no escape. Frustrated, I turned it off and lay there in the dark, listening to the wind howling outside. That's when I heard it. A whisper. It was faint at first, like someone murmuring from far away. I couldn't make out the words, but the voice was unmistakable. Sounded wrong, distorted, almost as if it was coming from inside the walls. I froze, holding my breath, my heart racing. Was I just imagining things? I strained my ears, waiting for it to come again. And then it did. A low whisper, clear this time, and unmistakably close. "Get out." I bolted upright, eyes wide in the darkness. My pulse thudded in my ears. I hadn't moved, hadn't even dared to breathe for a moment. But the voice, it wasn't just in my head. It came from the direction of the wall, from the very room next door. I stood up, trembling, and crept over to the door. My hand hovered over the knob for a moment, but I didn't turn it. My mind screamed at me to leave, to run, but something, some sick curiosity, kept me standing there. The whisper came again. This time it was louder. "Get out of the room. Now." I hesitated, then slowly reached for the door. I opened it just a crack, peering out into the hall. The faint flicker of the overhead light illuminated the empty corridor, but I could feel something watching me. The air felt heavier, colder. I pulled the door shut and locked it again, but I could still hear the whispers, growing louder like a chant. I stumbled back toward the bed, my heart racing. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew I couldn't stay in that room any longer. Then, without warning, the lights went out. Pitch black. I stood frozen, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I reached for my phone in the dark, but it was dead, completely useless. My mind was in overdrive, trying to make sense of everything, trying to rationalize what was going on. The whispering stopped, but in its place came something much worse. A knock at the door. I froze. No one should be here. The manager hadn't mentioned any other guests. I stared at the door, my pulse pounding in my throat. I heard it again, another knock, this time harder. "Open the door," came a voice, but it wasn't the same as before. It was a low growl, a deep, unnatural sound that sent a wave of dread through me. I backed away, my legs shaking. Who was on the other side? What did they want? I could hear movement, shuffling footsteps from the hallway, as if someone or something was pacing right outside the door. My thoughts raced. I had to leave. I had to get out. But as I reached for the door handle, I heard a sound from behind me. A soft scrape, like fingernails dragging across the wall. I spun around. Nothing. But the scraping sound continued, growing louder, as if something unseen was crawling closer to me. I wasn't alone in that room anymore. And whatever it was coming for me. I didn't have time to think. I bolted for the door, my hands scrambling for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. My heart pounded in my chest as I yanked on it, the metal cold and unyielding. I was trapped. The room felt like it was closing in around me. The scraping sound was now joined by soft, guttural breaths, like something was breathing just behind me. I spun around, my eyes scanning the room, but there was nothing there, nothing visible at least. The air had grown thick and heavy, as if something was suffocating the life out of it. The buzzing sound of the old fluorescent lights above me seemed to intensify, the flickering more violent now. Then came the sound I'll never forget. The soft, wet footsteps, the sound of something slithering across the carpet, dragging itself closer. I froze, eyes wide, my body trembling with fear. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My mind was screaming at me to get out, but my body was paralyzed. The footsteps stopped just a few inches away. I could feel the presence now, something dark and oppressive, something that didn't belong. I turned my head slowly, just enough to see the corner of the room out of the corner of my eye. There, at the edge of the shadows, a figure stood. It was crouched low, its shape distorted and unnatural, like a twisted mockery of a human. It had long, gnarled arms that scraped against the floor as it moved. Its eyes, if you could call them eyes, were hollow pits, black and empty, staring right into me. A cold chill swept over me as it inched closer, the sound of its movement sending a wave of dread through me. I couldn't tear my eyes away from it. It whispered, but not the voice from before. This voice was different. This was something older, something ancient. "You shouldn't have come here." I couldn't speak, couldn't even scream. My legs felt like they were cemented to the floor. All I could do was watch as it dragged itself closer, its twisted form moving with unnerving speed. It was getting closer and closer until I could feel its breath on the back of my neck, cold and rancid. And then, as if some unseen force had decided to spare me, the creature stopped. It tilted its head to the side, studying me with its black, soulless eyes. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, it vanished. 1 second, it was there breathing down my neck, its grotesque form lingering in the shadows, and the next, it was gone. The room felt empty, too empty. I ran to the window and pulled the curtains back. My eyes scanned the dark parking lot below, looking for any sign of help, any sign of life. But there was nothing. Just the empty stretch of gravel, the wind howling through the trees. I didn't know how long I stood there, staring into the dark. But when I turned back toward the room, I felt my stomach drop. The door was wide open. I hadn't heard it open, hadn't seen anyone near it. But there it was, wide open, as if inviting me to step out into whatever waited for me outside. But I couldn't move. I couldn't bring myself to leave the room. Not now. I was trapped. I had to get out of that motel. I had to leave, but I wasn't sure I'd make it out alive. The thing in the shadows, it was still there, waiting for me. And worse, I realized I wasn't the only one who had noticed that door. There were more of them. I could feel them, shifting in the corners, breathing in the dark, watching, waiting. If I made it through the night, I'd be lucky. If not, I could hear them again, the whispers. But this time, it was different. The words were clearer, louder. You'll never leave. I had no idea what to do. The air in that room was suffocating, thick with dread. The whispers, those maddening whispers, seemed to be coming from every direction now. They weren't just outside the door or in the shadows anymore. They were inside my mind. I couldn't block them out. You'll never leave. The voice wasn't just one anymore. It was a chorus, a choir of the damned, all speaking in unison, their voices crawling under my skin, chilling my bones. I couldn't tell where the sound was coming from, but it felt like it was closing in. The room was no longer just a place. It was alive. The walls seemed to pulse, like the heartbeat of something ancient and monstrous. I stumbled back from the open door, trying to gather myself. But the weight of the air, the sheer heaviness of it all, made my chest tighten. The presence in the room, the thing I'd seen in the shadows, wasn't gone. It was still there, waiting for the right moment to strike. I ran toward the window, hoping to escape. But when I pulled the blinds back, I was met with the same empty parking lot, the same dark trees swaying in the wind. There was no way out. The motel wasn't just a building anymore, it was a trap. A trap designed to keep people like me in, to keep us from leaving. My head was spinning. I couldn't think straight. I needed to escape, but my legs felt like lead. I could barely keep my balance as I staggered away from the window. That's when I heard it again. A slow, deliberate knocking on the door. The sound was methodical, almost ritualistic. I turned toward the door, my heart pounding in my chest. No, I couldn't open it. I couldn't face whatever was out there. But something about that knock, it felt wrong. It wasn't the knock of a person, not of any living being. It was something else. Something that didn't belong. Open it. This time, the voice was right behind me. I spun around so fast my neck cracked. But there was nothing. I was losing my mind. I had to get out. But how? Without thinking, I grabbed the key the manager had given me when I checked in and ran down the hallway. My heart raced with every step I took, my feet pounding against the worn carpet. The silence was deafening. I reached the stairwell, the stairs creaking beneath me as I climbed them, desperate to find any way out. I had to leave this place. Whatever was here, whatever dark force had taken hold of this motel, it was consuming everything. It was only a matter of time before it took me too. As I reached the top of the stairs, I glanced down the hallway. The lights flickered again, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. There was no escape from the nightmare that had swallowed me whole. I could still hear the whispers, now louder than ever, and I felt something shift in the darkness ahead. A figure. It was there at the end of the hall. Another one of those twisted creatures, crouched low, watching me with those hollow, empty eyes. I couldn't stop myself. I ran. I didn't know where I was going, but I had to get away. My legs burned, my breath ragged as I turned the corner and found myself facing another hallway. There were no windows here, no exits. Just more rooms, more traps. I ran into a door, room 3. Without thinking, I turned the handle and pushed it open. I wasn't sure what I expected to find inside, but what I saw sent ice through my veins. The room was identical to mine. Same peeling wallpaper, same flickering lights, but there was something different. On the bed, there was a figure. Person, or at least I thought it was a person. It was lying there, motionless, eyes wide open and staring at the ceiling. Their face was pale, almost gray, and their mouth was slightly open, as if frozen mid-scream. But the most horrifying part? They were wearing the same clothes I had on. My jeans, my jacket. It was me. The world spun around me as I stumbled backward, my chest tightening. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what was happening anymore. Was I losing my mind? Was this a dream? A nightmare I couldn't wake up from? The whispering intensified. It wasn't just a voice now. It was the entire motel, every creaking floorboard, every gust of wind outside. It all became a cacophony of voices, all chanting the same thing. You'll never leave. The door slammed shut behind me with a deafening bang, and I whipped around, heart in my throat, only to see that the figure on the bed was no longer there. I was trapped, and whatever was in that motel with me was not going to let me out alive. I don't know how much longer I stood there, my back pressed against the door, gasping for breath. The room seemed to be closing in on me, the air thick with the stench of something rotten. The whispers, they weren't just voices now. They were in my head, invading my thoughts, crawling into my brain like parasites. I couldn't think straight anymore. I couldn't tell what was real. And then, just like that, the whispers stopped. Silence. I dared to look around the room, but nothing had changed. The bed was empty. The walls were still peeling. The flickering lights still buzzed in the corners. But there was something else, something new, something that wasn't there before. At the far side of the room, near the small, cracked mirror on the wall, a door had appeared. It was the same as all the other doors, but different. It wasn't there when I came in. There was no way it could have appeared without me seeing it. And yet, there it was. The air felt colder, and a chill ran down my spine as I stared at it. I knew, deep down, I knew that whatever lay beyond that door was the only way out. But I also knew that once I stepped through, I might never return. The whispers returned, faint at first, then growing louder, more desperate. You'll never leave. You'll never leave. The voice was mine. It was my own voice, but distorted, twisted, like an echo from the depths of my mind. I could feel the presence closing in. The thing in the shadows, the creature that had been following me since I first walked into this cursed motel, it was getting closer. I could hear its breathing again, low and guttural. It was there, just behind me, waiting for the moment I'd turn around. I didn't have much time. I couldn't stay in this room. With every ounce of strength I had left, I moved toward the door. The sound of my footsteps was deafening in the silence. My hand trembled as I reached for the knob, but before I could touch it, the door creaked open on its own, as if something or someone was waiting for me. I hesitated. My heart thudded in my chest. But the whispers, they weren't just voices now. They were threats. Come through the door and you'll be free. I didn't know who or what was on the other side, but it was my only chance. Without another thought, I stepped through. The world shifted. The hallway beyond the door was no longer the same. It was darker, the walls blackened and twisted, as though the motel itself had been warped into some kind of nightmare dimension. The air was thick with fog, and the floor beneath me creaked with every step. I could hear something, soft footsteps, moving behind me. I spun around, but there was no one there. Just the darkness, stretching into infinity. The whispers were gone now. The only sound left was the steady beat of my own heart. Then I saw it. At the end of the hall, a figure stood tall, shadowy, its form indistinct but unmistakable. It was watching me, just like the creature from earlier. Only this time, its presence didn't feel like a mistake. It felt intentional. Like it had been waiting for me to reach this point. I couldn't move. My feet felt like they were cemented to the floor. My hands were clammy, my throat dry. I had to get out of there. I had to. The figure stepped forward, and with every inch it moved, the darkness seemed to grow thicker, pressing in on me. The air grew colder, and I could hear the sound of it. Its breath, slow and deliberate, as if it were savoring the moment. Did you think you could escape? The figure spoke, its voice low and rasping. It was the same voice from the whispers, the same voice from the room. It was mine. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The motel wasn't just a place. It wasn't just some abandoned building. It was a trap, a prison. And I was the one who had trapped myself inside. I had wandered in willingly, and now I was paying the price. But it wasn't too late. I turned around and ran. Desperate to escape, to break free from whatever hold this place had over me. The hallway stretched on forever, but I couldn't stop. My legs burned, my breath coming in ragged gasps. But I didn't care. The creature behind me was closing in fast. I could feel its breath on my neck, its cold, clammy fingers grazing my skin. I was almost there, the exit, the end of the hallway, just a few more steps. But when I reached the end, there was nothing. No door, no exit, only darkness. The last thing I remember was the whisper. Now you're one of us. And then I woke up. I don't know how long it's been since that night. Days? Weeks? Months? All I know is that I'm still here, still in the motel, still trapped in the never-ending cycle. And it's waiting for you too. So, if you ever find yourself on a lonely stretch of highway and see the flickering neon sign of Pinewood Motel, don't stop. Keep driving. Because once you check in, you might never check out. Trust me. I didn't. I don't know how to explain what happened after that, how to put into words the sensation of time slipping away, unraveling like threads in the dark. All I know is that the motel's grip never let go. It feels like I've been trapped in that nightmare forever, unable to break free. I've tried. Trust me. I've tried everything. After I woke up, I thought I was back in reality. I thought I was safe. The room felt normal, almost too normal. The walls weren't bleeding shadows. The lights weren't flickering with a malevolent pulse. But then I looked out the window. I should have known. It was still the same night, the same storm, the same empty parking lot, the same wind howling through the trees. But something was wrong. The cars in the lot, they weren't my car. They weren't even from the same time period. Rusted ancient vehicles like relics from a different era. I couldn't remember parking them there. I couldn't remember anything. I staggered to the door. It was locked. Of course it was locked. I tried the knob again. This time it gave way. The door creaked open with a sound that sent chills down my spine. I had to get out. I had to find a way to escape. The hallway was just like I remembered, except now there were no windows. No exits. Just endless rows of doors, each one a trap, each one a room full of horrors I was too terrified to open. I ran down the hallway, my breath ragged, my feet slapping against the floor. But no matter how fast I ran, the hall never seemed to end. It stretched on and on and on. The walls bent in unnatural angles, the air thicker with each step. Then I heard it again. The whispers. They were everywhere now. Echoing off the walls, swirling around my head, clawing at my mind. The voices were different now, more insistent, more frantic. They weren't just saying you'll never leave anymore. They were calling me. Come closer, you belong here. I stopped dead in my tracks. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how much longer I could keep running. My legs felt like lead. My eyes were blurry, my mind cloudy. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I was suffocating, drowning in the weight of this place. I had to wake up, but I couldn't. That's when I saw it. The door at the end of the hall. It wasn't like the others. It looked different. It was old, worn, with dark wood and rusted metal hinges, but there was something familiar about it. Something that made my heart skip a beat. I had to go through it. I didn't want to. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to turn away, to run in the opposite direction. But I couldn't. The whispers were louder now, clearer. They weren't my voice anymore. They were everyone's voice. The voices of the others who had come before me, the ones who were trapped like I was. Their souls still lingered here, echoing through the halls. I reached for the doorknob. And I felt it. A hand. A cold, clammy hand grabbed my wrist, pulling me back. My scream was silenced by the pressure on my throat. My body went numb, frozen in place. It was the creature again. The one I had seen in the shadows. The one that had been following me since the moment I stepped into Pinewood Motel. I couldn't see it, couldn't move, but I could feel its presence. It was close, too close, suffocating me with its darkness. It whispered in my ear. Did you think you could escape? You're one of us now. I tried to fight, tried to pull away, but its grip was stronger than any force I'd ever felt. My vision blurred, the world spinning. And then I understood. The motel wasn't just trapping me physically. It was pulling me into its depths, into its twisted reality, until I became part of it. Part of its horrors. The people I had seen, the twisted figures in the hall, they weren't just hallucinations. They were the souls of others who had fallen victim to this place. And now I was joining them. I was becoming one of them. But there was a small, flickering part of me, a small piece of my old self, that screamed to break free. To keep fighting. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I fought. With every ounce of my strength, I tore away from the grip that held me. I pushed myself toward the door. The creature growled, but it couldn't stop me. I threw open the door. And for a moment, everything stopped. The world was still. Quiet. The whispers were gone. The motel was gone. I was standing outside. I was free. But when I looked around, I realized something was wrong. The world was wrong. The trees were twisted, their branches like gnarled fingers clawing at the sky. The air was thick and suffocating, and the ground beneath me felt unnatural, as if it wasn't even real. And then I heard it. A familiar sound. The sound of footsteps. I turned around, and there it was. The motel. Pinewood Motel. Still standing, still watching me with its hollow eyes. I had escaped. But I had never truly left. I don't know what's real anymore. All I know is that if you ever find yourself on a dark road with the flicker of a neon sign in the distance, you should keep driving. Because the moment you pull into that parking lot, you might just find that Pinewood Motel isn't a place. It's a prison. And once you check in, there's no way out. Not for you. Not for me. Not for anyone. We're all trapped here. Forever. I thought I had escaped. I really did. The world outside felt so real, so normal, like I had finally broken free of the nightmare that had consumed me. But deep down, I knew something had changed. The air felt wrong, like it was pressing against me from all sides, suffocating me. The sky was a sickly shade of gray, and the trees around me, those twisted, gnarled trees, felt like they were alive, like they were watching my every move. I turned back, expecting to see the motel fading into the distance. But it wasn't. It was still there. Still looming. As if it was waiting, knowing that eventually I would come back. My legs felt heavy as I stumbled forward, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the place. I tried to run, tried to escape once more, but every time I took a step, the motel seemed to grow closer. It was like the distance between us was being swallowed up by some invisible force. And then I heard it again. The whisper. It was soft at first, but it grew louder. Closer. It wasn't just one voice anymore. It was a chorus of voices, thousands of voices, all speaking in unison. The voices of everyone who had ever come to Pinewood Motel, everyone who had been swallowed by it. Welcome home. I spun around, my heart pounding in my chest. The motel was right behind me now, impossibly close, its windows like dark, empty eyes staring down at me. I turned and ran. This time, there was no hesitation. There was no fear of the unknown. There was only the urgent need to get away, to escape the prison that had been built around me. But the more I ran, the faster the motel seemed to grow. It wasn't just a building anymore. It had become a living thing, a monstrous entity that was consuming the world around me. The trees, the sky, the ground beneath me, all of it was melting away, dissolving into the darkness of the motel. I didn't know where I was anymore. The road had disappeared. The horizon had vanished. There was only the motel now, looming above me, pulling me in. I tried to scream, but the words caught in my throat. The whispers were drowning out everything else. They were inside my head, whispering the same thing over and over again. You can't leave. You belong here. Forever. I tried to close my ears to it, to push the voices out of my mind, but it was no use. The motel had claimed me. It had made me a part of it, just like it had made all the others. And now I was nothing more than another lost soul wandering its endless halls. I reached the door. It was open, as if it had been waiting for me. My hand reached out, trembling. And just as my fingers brushed against the doorknob, a wave of dread washed over me. This wasn't freedom. This wasn't escape. This was hell. The moment I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening crash. I whipped around, my heart racing. The room was dark, empty, save for the single light that hung from the ceiling, flickering like a dying candle. I looked down. My hands were shaking. My clothes were soaked with sweat. I was back in the motel. But this time something was different. I was no longer alone. Figures moved in the darkness, their shapes indistinct, their eyes glowing like embers in the black. I could hear them now, their footsteps slow and deliberate, echoing in the halls. I could feel their presence, their cold, lifeless eyes following my every movement. The walls seemed to pulse as if the motel itself was alive, breathing. The air was thick, oppressive, making it hard to breathe. And then I heard it. The growl. Low. Deep. Unmistakable. It came from the corner of the room where a shadowy figure stood. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its eyes on me, its hunger. You never should have come back, it whispered. I turned and ran, but the hallway stretched on endlessly. I could feel the walls closing in, the shadows growing longer, darker. I couldn't escape. I couldn't run far enough. And then I heard the sound I feared the most. The door behind me, the one I had just come through, slammed shut, and the room I had left behind vanished. There was no way out anymore. No way forward. No way back. The whispers started again, louder this time. You're one of us now. Forever. And I realized in that horrifying moment that there was no escaping. Not anymore. Pinewood Motel wasn't just a building. It wasn't just a trap. It was a cycle. And I was stuck in it. Forever. So, if you ever find yourself on a road at night with a flickering neon sign in the distance, remember this. You might think you're just passing through. You might think you can just check in for a quick stay, a safe night's rest. But the motel isn't a place. It's a prison. A curse. And once you walk through those doors, you'll never leave. Not for you. Not for me. Not for anyone. We are all trapped in this nightmare together. I don't know how long it's been. Time doesn't work the same way in Pinewood Motel. It bends, stretches, loops back on itself. It feels like I've lived 1,000 lifetimes in this place, each one more twisted than the last. I've seen faces, heard voices, touched the walls that bleed with forgotten memories. But the most terrifying realization is this. I am not the only one trapped here. I thought I was. At first, I thought I was the sole prisoner, cursed to roam the empty halls, forever searching for an escape that never comes. But I was wrong. Pinewood Motel isn't just a place. It's a crossroads, a place where souls get lost, where they're drawn in by the promise of safety, only to be swallowed whole by something far darker than they could ever imagine. I can hear them now, the voices of the others, the lost ones, the ones who checked in just like I did, thinking they were safe. But they're not safe. None of us are. I hear them when I sleep. I hear them when I wake. Whispers, soft at first, but always growing louder, closer. You belong here, and it isn't just the voices. I've seen them too, the faces, the people who have lived in this place, their eyes hollow and lifeless, their skin pale and stretched tight over their bones. They wander the halls just like I do, trapped in their own personal hells. They can't escape just like I can't. We're all stuck here, each one a prisoner of our own making. I've seen the one who was here before me, the one who wore the same clothes I wore when I first checked in. It's impossible to describe how it feels to see myself, my own reflection in the eyes of someone who isn't me. But I know what it is. That is me, the past me, the one who walked through that door for the first time, thinking it was just another stop on the road. But that person is gone now, and I am becoming just like them. There is something here in this place. Something that bends the very fabric of time, that turns the rules of reality upside down. It pulls you in, and it doesn't let go. I think I've figured it out finally. The key to it all. Pinewood Motel isn't just a place, it's a test. A test of who you are. At the beginning, I thought I could escape. I thought there was a way out, that if I just pushed hard enough, ran fast enough, I could make it. But I was wrong. No one gets out of here. Not alive. Not really. Not unless you give in. Not unless you surrender. That's the part that terrifies me. Because the more time I spend here, the more I can feel it. The change. It's in the air. It's in my blood. The whispers are louder now, more insistent. They want me to join them. They want me to become one of them. And I don't know how much longer I can fight it. Last night, I tried something. Something that felt wrong. But I had to know. I had to see if I could break the cycle. I went into the room where I had seen my past self, the one I had become. I stepped inside, feeling the cold air wrap around me like an old friend. The room was the same, stale, dark, silent. But something was different. There, in the corner of the room, was a small box. It wasn't there the last time I looked. I reached for it, my fingers trembling, knowing that I shouldn't. But something inside of me, something darker, compelled me to open it. Inside the box, there was a key. I don't know what it opens. I don't know if it's the key to the room, to the motel, or to the escape I've been searching for. But I know one thing. I'm running out of time. The voices are growing louder now. They're coming from everywhere. The walls, the floor, the air around me. They want me to join them. They want me to surrender, to stop fighting, to give in. I'm tempted. I won't lie. The thought of finally stopping, the thought of finally becoming one with this place, with all of the others who came before me, who never escaped, feels strangely comforting. But I can't. I can't give in. Not yet. I won't let the motel win. But here's the thing. I'm starting to wonder if there is a way out. I'm starting to wonder if the key in that box doesn't just open doors to more rooms, more corridors, more endless loops. What if the key opens a door to freedom? What if it's the only thing standing between me and whatever is waiting for me on the other side? But here's the truth I'm facing now. Pinewood Motel is a place of reckoning. It's not just a test of who you are. It's a test of who you will become. I've been here for far too long. I know what's waiting for me. I know what will happen if I stay here any longer. So I've made my choice. The key is in my hand. I'm not sure where it will take me, but whatever lies on the other side, I know one thing. It's better than staying here. Whatever I face, whatever I find, it has to be better than the endless cycle of Pinewood Motel. I've never been more afraid in my life, but I don't have a choice. I'll step through the door, and I'll find out what happens next. I just hope it's the escape I've been searching for. The key was heavy in my hand, far heavier than it should have been. It felt like it was pulsing with something, some kind of energy I couldn't quite understand. It was as if the key itself knew what I was about to do. As if it had been waiting for me. Waiting for this moment. I stood in front of the door, feeling a sense of dread rising up in my chest. This was it. This was the choice I had been pushing toward all this time. I had tried everything else. I had run, I had fought, I had resisted, and now I was standing here at the threshold of something I couldn't yet comprehend. The motel had become a part of me. Its walls, its whispers, its shadows, they had all started to blend with my own thoughts. But deep down, in the very core of my being, I knew one thing for sure. If I stayed here much longer, I would become something else. I would become just another lost soul doomed to wander the halls forever, my voice joining the others in the chorus of the damned. And that thought alone was enough to push me forward. I stepped toward the door, my hand trembling as I slid the key into the lock. There was a moment of complete stillness. No whispers. No footsteps. The world around me seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what I would do. The key turned with an agonizing slowness, and the sound of the lock clicking open seemed to echo in the silence of the motel. The door creaked as it opened. I was no longer in the hallway. The world I had known was gone. This room, this space, it wasn't anything I could have prepared myself for. It wasn't another room in the motel. It was nothing. The space before me was vast. A void of endless blackness. As if the room I had just opened was the gateway to the very fabric of reality itself. It felt like I was standing at the edge of the universe, peering into the unknown. There was no light, no sound, no ground beneath my feet, just darkness stretching out in all directions. The key was no longer in my hand. I hadn't even noticed it disappear. I took a step forward. My foot touched something soft, solid but strange. It felt like I was walking on air, but my body was grounded. My feet connected to something I couldn't see. The darkness was absolute, consuming. The shadows seemed to move, bending and twisting in impossible shapes. I could feel them watching me, as though this place itself was alive, aware of my every movement. Welcome, came the voice. It was deep, a low rumbling that seemed to reverberate in my bones. The voice wasn't one I recognized, and yet it felt strangely familiar. It was as though I had heard it before, maybe in a dream, or in the darkest corners of my mind. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. It sounded so small in the vast emptiness. "I am the one who waits," it replied. "The one who watches. The keeper of the door." The keeper of the door? I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it wasn't good. Nothing ever is when you're talking to something that lives in the dark. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my throat tight with fear. The figure before me, if it could even be called a figure, shifted in the dark, moving in ways that defied logic. Its shape was fluid, constantly changing, as if it was made from the very fabric of the void itself. It was a part of the darkness, but also something more, something ancient, something beyond my understanding. "You've made your choice," it said. "You sought the door. You sought freedom. But freedom, it has a price." I could feel my heart racing in my chest. "What price?" The keeper's voice grew softer now, almost a whisper. "You must choose again. Choose whether you will leave or become part of the darkness. Part of the motel." I didn't understand. I thought I had already chosen. I had stepped through the door, hadn't I? I had made my choice when I picked up the key. But this was different. This was something I couldn't comprehend. "How do I leave?" I demanded, my voice desperate. "How do I get out of here?" The keeper didn't answer immediately. It let the silence hang between us like a thick fog, pressing down on me. "You cannot leave, not unless you become it. You must make the ultimate sacrifice. You must give up what you were in order to escape what you've become. But know this, once you choose, you will never return. There is no going back. Not for you. Not for anyone." I could feel my mind racing, my heart pounding in my chest. What was the right choice? What did I have to give up? I had already given so much. And then it clicked. This was the reckoning. This was the test I had been avoiding. It wasn't about escaping the motel, it was about deciding whether I could live with what I had become. Could I leave this place and remain the person I was before? Could I walk away from everything it had done to me without it claiming my soul? My hand trembled as I reached out into the void. I didn't know what lay ahead. I didn't know what price I would pay for freedom. But one thing was clear, I had no choice but to choose. And whatever I chose, whatever happened next, I knew I would never be the same. This was the final door. And now I had to decide whether I would step through it or let the darkness swallow me whole. I stood in the void, feeling the weight of the keeper's words pressing down on me like 1,000 tons of stone. My mind was a blur. How could I choose? How could I make a decision that would change everything? That would change me? The darkness around me seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if it could sense my hesitation, my indecision. The voice, the keeper, was still there, echoing through the void, but its words had become distant, almost inaudible. My thoughts were my own now, swirling in the oppressive silence of this place. The keeper had given me the ultimate choice, leave or become part of the darkness. It sounded simple enough, but I knew better. Nothing was ever simple in Pinewood Motel. Could I walk away? Could I leave everything behind, everything, and be free? Or would I surrender to this place, to this eternal cycle of lost souls and become just another shadow, another whisper in the halls? I closed my eyes, trying to clear my mind. I needed to think. I needed to know what was at stake. If I stayed here, I would never escape. I would become part of the very thing that had tortured me, part of the motel, part of its endless horror. It would consume me, just like it had consumed the others who came before me. But if I left, if I stepped through this final door, what would I be leaving behind? What would I lose in the process? Would I truly be free, or would I just be running away from the truth, from the part of me that had already changed? The keeper's voice suddenly filled the space again, like a dark whisper carried on the wind. You cannot remain in the middle, lost between two worlds. You must choose, or be consumed by the choice itself. My heart pounded in my chest. I had no time left. The void around me seemed to grow darker, closer. I could feel the presence of the keeper, that ancient, unearthly being, watching me, waiting for my decision. I had to choose. But how could I? How could I possibly understand the full weight of the choice before me? I thought back to everything I had seen, everything I had felt in this place. The motel wasn't just a building, it was a reflection of what lurked inside me. The fear, the anger, the loneliness, the shadows that followed me, that haunted my every step. The motel had only magnified those feelings, turned them into something real. It had been feeding on me, feeding on the darkness inside me. But I had fought. I had resisted. Even now, I didn't want to give in. I didn't want to become a part of the very thing that had tormented me. And yet, the thought of freedom, the thought of leaving it all behind, was almost too tempting to ignore. I could step away from this place. I could leave the darkness behind. But what if, in leaving, I would lose everything? What if this was a trap, the final test, designed to break me down, to trick me into thinking I could ever escape? My hand trembled again as I reached out into the darkness, the decision weighing heavily on me. The key was still gone, disappeared into the void, but I could feel it, deep down, that sense of finality that had settled over me. I was on the brink of something that would either free me or destroy me. The silence stretched on, unbearable. My chest tightened with every passing second. I had to decide. And then I heard the voice again. But this time, it wasn't the keeper's voice. It was my own. You've been running long enough. The words seemed to echo in the stillness, bouncing around in my mind. I had been running from the motel, from the fear, from myself. But what if the key to my freedom wasn't in escaping? What if the key was in facing it all head-on? What if the way out wasn't through a door, but through my own choice? My own acceptance of everything I had become, everything this place had turned me into? What if the answer was not running from the darkness, but accepting it? I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and stepped forward into the blackness. The moment my foot touched the ground, the void exploded with light, a blinding flash that swallowed everything around me. I couldn't see, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The light consumed me, and for a moment I thought I would be lost forever. And then it stopped. I was back in the motel. But it was different. The halls were silent. The lights were dim but steady. The air, once thick with dread, now felt empty, hollow. I looked around. The walls, the floors, the rooms, they were all the same. But somehow they felt different. They didn't feel alive anymore. The shadows weren't watching me. The whispers were gone. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I was alone. Free. But I knew something. Deep down, I knew. I hadn't truly escaped the motel. I had become part of it, yes, but I had also accepted it. The choice I had made, the decision to face everything, to step into the darkness without running from it, it had changed me. I was no longer the same person who had walked into Pinewood Motel that first night. I wasn't a prisoner. I wasn't a victim. I was the keeper now, and the cycle would continue. But now I knew what I had to do. If you ever find yourself on the road, late at night, and you see the flickering neon sign of Pinewood Motel in the distance, don't stop. Keep driving, because if you do, the door will open, and when it does, you'll find that you are the next choice. And maybe, just maybe, you'll become the keeper too. It's strange, really, the feeling of being both here and elsewhere at the same time. The walls of Pinewood Motel, once oppressive, are now familiar. The air, once heavy with dread, now feels oddly comforting. but it's not a comfort born of peace. It's a comfort born of understanding. I am the keeper now. I have inherited this curse, this eternal role. It's a mantle I never asked for, but one that feels both inevitable and necessary. The motel has changed me in ways I can't fully describe. My connection to it is no longer one of fear or desperation. Now it's a bond, a responsibility. I watch over the halls, over the lost souls who wander these corridors, searching for a way out. I see them, people like me, people who checked in thinking they could escape, thinking they could just pass through. But they don't understand. They can't. They don't realize that once you step inside, you become a part of it. You become one of us. And now I see it clearly. This is not a curse. It's a test of choice, of strength, of will. Only those who truly understand the darkness inside themselves can walk out of here. Only those who face what they are, what they've become, can break the cycle. But most, they can't. They don't know how. I am the one who watches, the one who decides. Every night I hear them, the whispers, the voices of the ones who came before me and the ones who will come after. They speak of escape, of freedom, but they don't understand. They never will. I walk the halls, my footsteps echoing through the empty rooms. Some of the doors are locked. Some are open. It doesn't matter. The motel itself is alive, shifting, breathing, consuming. Every time I turn a corner, I know it's watching me. It's watching all of us. And it's waiting for the next choice. It's strange how much the motel knows. It knows the fears, the desires, the weaknesses of everyone who steps through its doors. It doesn't just trap the body, it traps the soul. It bends you to its will, molding you into something you didn't know you could become. But somehow over time, I've come to accept this. It's not about fighting anymore. It's about understanding the nature of the place. About understanding my role. I am the keeper, and I have the power to choose who stays, who leaves. But the truth is, it's never as simple as that. I can open doors, I can guide people through the halls. But in the end, they have to make the choice. I can't do it for them. I can't save them. But I can watch. I can listen. And I can learn. I walk through the motel, feeling the weight of the eyes on me, the eyes of the others. The ones who are still lost. Some of them are aware. They know what they've become. They know the truth. Others are still in denial, still searching for a way out, still holding on to the hope that they can escape this place. I wonder sometimes if I was like that. If I was just another lost soul, roaming the halls, desperate to find a way back to a life that wasn't mine anymore. But that was before I became the keeper. I feel the pull. The urge to check the rooms to see if anyone is still wandering, still searching. I move silently through the corridors, my footsteps soft against the worn carpet. The rooms are as they always were, dimly lit, cold, empty. But each one is a world unto itself. A world where the people inside are trapped, waiting for a choice that may never come. There is one room, though, that stands out to me. It's room 9, the first room I ever stayed in. The room where it all began. I hesitate before opening the door, but I know what I will find. It's always the same. The room is empty, but it's not empty in the way the other rooms are. It's alive. The walls pulse with energy, and the air feels thick with memories, with echoes of what happened here. This room is where the cycle began for me. And now it's where it ends. At least for tonight. I close the door, stepping back into the hall, and I feel it again. The weight of the motel pressing down on me. The sense that it is always watching, always waiting. But I know something now. Something I didn't understand before. I am not trapped here. Not anymore. I'm the one who decides who stays. I'm the one who decides who leaves. And yet, even as I stand in the darkened hallway, I know the truth. This place is never truly empty. Not really. Because even though I have become the keeper, even though I hold the key to the doors, there is still one door that will never open for me. The door that leads out. And I know now, as I stand here, that no matter what happens, I will never leave. Not for you. Not for anyone. Because the motel is my home now. And I am the keeper. And this is my burden. Forever. It's strange, but even after everything I've seen, everything I've done, there are still moments, fleeting, almost imperceptible, where I wonder if I could escape, if the cycle could truly be broken. But those thoughts are quickly silenced by the reality of my situation. I am not the prisoner. I am the keeper. I have the power to guide the lost souls that wander these halls, the power to decide who stays and who leaves. But in the quietest, darkest moments, I find myself questioning what it means to be the keeper. Am I truly free? The answer comes as a whisper in the back of my mind, a thought that echoes like a warning. You are one of them now. There is no way out. The darkness of Pinewood Motel presses in on me once again. It's not a physical thing, it's a presence, an oppressive weight that blankets everything. The walls, once faded and worn, are now alive with the pulse of the motel's heartbeat. The flickering lights above me are no longer just an inconvenience, they seem to have a life of their own, as if they are trying to communicate something I can't quite grasp. And then I hear it. The sound of footsteps echoing through the halls. I don't need to look. I know who it is. It's the next one. The next lost soul. I turn to face the hallway. The silence is deafening, but it's not true silence. It's the kind of silence that fills you with dread, the kind that makes your skin crawl. The footsteps grow louder. A soft shuffle at first, followed by the distinct sound of someone dragging their feet. The sound I've heard so many times before. I move toward the source, my heart beating a little faster. There's a pull, an undeniable compulsion to follow. Maybe it's instinct, maybe it's the role I've accepted, but I feel it deeply. The urge to guide, to help. The urge to watch. The figure appears at the end of the hallway, emerging from the shadows like a ghost. At first, they're just a silhouette, tall, thin, their form hazy and indistinct. But as they draw closer, I see their face. It's a face I recognize. My own. I stop dead in my tracks. This is a new version of me. The one who had walked into this motel, full of hope, full of belief that I could make it through. The one who had believed there was a way out. But now I see the truth. The version of me before the keeper, the version that still thought there was hope, has come back. And I feel a strange sense of déjà vu. The figure is looking at me now, their eyes wide with fear, confusion. They don't recognize me. Not yet. But they will. They always do. They stop just in front of me. I can hear their breath, ragged, shallow. You, they whisper, voice trembling. What happened? Where am I? I can feel the weight of their question, the desperation in their voice. The same desperation I had felt when I first checked in. The same questions I had asked myself when I was lost in this place. But there is no answer to that question. Not anymore. This is Pinewood Motel, I say, my voice low. The words seem to hang in the air as though they're coming from a distance. And you're here to make a choice. The figure's eyes widen in fear as they look around the darkened hallway, at the empty rooms, the endless doors. I don't understand. What do you mean? I take a step forward. There's a door at the end of the hall. You'll find it. It's the way out. I can see the flicker of hope in their eyes, the belief that they can leave, that they can escape. It's the same belief I once had. But I know better now. There's no way out, I say softly. Not unless you understand the truth. Not unless you accept who you've become. Their face contorts with confusion, and I can feel the panic rising in their chest. They take a step back, eyes darting toward the far end of the hallway, toward the exit they think they can reach. They start to move, but I stop them with a single word. You're not ready. They freeze, their eyes locking with mine. I can see the flicker of fear, the realization that something is wrong. But they don't understand yet. They don't know what they've become. Not yet. Please, they whisper, pleading. I don't want to be here. I know, I say softly. But you are. We all are. The air around us grows heavy, the weight of the motel pressing in on me. The shadows seem to deepen, the room stretching farther than it should. The walls feel like they're closing in, and I can feel the presence of the other souls, watching, waiting. You have to choose, I say quietly. Stay here, or face what you've become. The figure stares at me, their expression slowly turning from fear to resignation. They understand, or at least they're starting to. The truth settles over them like a heavy blanket. They know they've made their choice. They've checked in. And now they'll never leave. The hallway is silent once more. I turn away, walking deeper into the motel. It's a cold, familiar silence. The same silence I've lived with for so long. The next soul will come soon. They always do. And I will watch. I will guide them to their choice. But I will never leave. Not for you. Not for anyone. Because the door that leads out, it's never for me. And it never will be. This is my burden. This is my curse. Forever. And Pinewood Motel will never let go. The days, if you can even call them days, pass in a blur. There is no time here, not really. Not in Pinewood Motel. The passage of hours, the turning of the clock, it all loses meaning the longer you stay. The only thing that's constant is the feeling, the presence, the never-ending hum of something watching, always waiting. I move through the halls, the same halls that stretch endlessly in all directions. They don't change. They're the same as they've always been. And yet everything feels heavier. The weight of responsibility pressing down on me with each step. I'm the keeper. I've accepted that role. I've come to understand it. The others, the ones who walk through the door, the ones who wander these halls in search of an escape, they don't understand. Not yet, but they will. They always do. I watch them as they come, each one the same. Confused, terrified, desperate. They check in thinking they can leave. But they can't. None of us can. Once you've crossed the threshold, you're part of the motel. Whether you like it or not. Some of them resist. I've seen it before, seen them run, seen them fight. They try to find a way out, try to escape the nightmare that is Pinewood Motel. But they don't understand. They don't realize that there is no escape. There is only the cycle. The waiting. The watching. I've walked past so many rooms. So many doors that open into nothing but endless dark. There are faces behind those doors. Faces of those who came before. Faces of those who couldn't break the cycle. I know them all. The whispers are their voices, still echoing in the hallways, still crying out for freedom. But I don't hear them anymore. Not the way I used to. I've become numb to their cries. The burden of being the keeper isn't just about controlling the flow of souls. It's about accepting what I am now. It's about understanding that this place, this nightmare, is mine. And I have to watch. I have to witness it all. The ones who try to leave. The ones who accept their fate. The ones who will be lost forever. I pass room 9 again, the room where it all began. The room where I first stepped through that door, where I first realized the truth. The room still feels the same, cold and silent, but it doesn't hold the same weight for me anymore. It's just another room, just another part of the cycle. I linger outside the door, my hand resting on the knob, and I wonder if this is what I was always meant to be. The one who watches, the one who waits, the one who understands what it takes to make it out, but also understands that no one ever truly does. I turn away from the door. The sound of footsteps echoes down the hall. Another one, another lost soul. I know them before I see them. The same face, the same confusion, the same fear. They look at me wide-eyed, their gaze frantic as they look around, trying to understand what this place is. They're still in denial. They don't know what's coming for them yet. I move toward them, my footsteps steady, calm. They tremble, taking a step back. They've seen the same thing I saw when I first arrived. The endless hallway, the locked doors, the whispering voices. They've felt the same fear, the same dread. Who are you? They ask, their voice shaking. What is this place? I stop in front of them, looking them in the eye. This is Pinewood Motel, I say softly. And you're here because you checked in. The fear in their eyes deepens. They start to back away, but they're not running, not yet. They don't know they can't run. They don't know there's nowhere to go. How do I get out? They whisper. There's a pause. I don't need to say it. They can see it in my eyes. You can't, I reply. There is no way out. Not unless you face what you've become. The words seem to sink in, and I watch as the realization starts to dawn on them. Their body stiffens, their eyes darting to the hallway, to the doors that lead to nowhere. But, no, they gasp. This can't be real. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't ask for this. I nod slowly. None of us did. They stare at me, at the cold, hollow expression in my eyes. They're starting to understand now, but it's too late. They can't leave. They can't undo the choices they've made. I step back, my gaze never leaving them. You have to choose, I say quietly. Stay, or become part of it. They look down at the floor, tears welling in their eyes. The weight of it all is sinking in, the weight of their fate. They know they have to make a choice. They know they can't leave. I turn away and continue down the hall, my footsteps soft against the worn carpet. The motel is silent again. The air feels thicker, colder. It's the same as always. The cycle continues. The watcher watches. The souls wander. I know what I have to do. I've always known. I have to guide them. I have to watch. I have to wait. I am the keeper. And the motel never stops. The next one will come soon. And when they do, I will be here, waiting, watching. Always. Forever. The air feels heavier today. There's a shift in the atmosphere, an unsettling chill that moves through the halls like a breath of cold wind. It's not unusual, but today, for some reason, it stings a little more. Maybe it's because of the one who checked in last night. Or maybe it's just that sense of inevitability, that quiet knowing that the cycle continues no matter how much you wish it would stop. But I'm not a part of that anymore. I am the keeper. The motel is my charge. The halls are mine. The souls who wander these empty corridors are my responsibility. Yet sometimes when I walk these hallways, when I pause in front of a room, when I listen to the echoes of whispers that are long faded, I can't help but feel something stir in me. Something human. I thought I had let go of it, thought I had buried those feelings deep inside, but they resurface now and then like an old ghost. Doubt. Regret. The thought that maybe, just maybe, there's another way. I shake my head. It's pointless to think that way. The keeper doesn't doubt. The keeper doesn't question. But even now, I'm not sure if I'm trying to convince myself or if I'm trying to convince the motel. I pass a door, and a soft, familiar sound catches my ear. A muffled sob. A low whimper. Is coming from room 4. The sound isn't new. I've heard it before. It's the sound of someone broken. Someone who's realized what's happening to them. The realization that they've crossed into the motel's grasp. And that they'll never leave. I pause outside the door. I could walk away. I could keep moving. But something pulls me in. I step forward and open it. Inside, the room is dimly lit. A small, single bed sits against the wall. The sheets rumpled and disheveled. The air is thick, like it always is when someone first arrives. Stale, heavy with the weight of their disbelief. The walls seem to close in on themselves the same way they always do. The shadows dance in the corners, teasing at the edges of the room. But the person inside is different this time. They sit in the corner, their face buried in their hands. I can feel the desperation radiating from them. They don't look up when I enter. They don't look at me at all. They just sit there like they're waiting for something. Waiting for the inevitable. I know this person. I know their face, their voice. I have seen them before. But this time, it's not me they're looking for. It's something else. Someone who can give them the answers they're desperately seeking. I take a step closer. I can hear them muttering to themselves now, soft, frantic words that don't make sense. Please. Please, someone tell me, how do I leave? How do I get out of here? The question is the same as it always is. The same question I asked. The same question everyone who steps into this place asks. But I know the answer. The answer I've known all along. The answer that comes with acceptance, with understanding. But they're not ready for that yet. They never are, I whisper under my breath. I move closer, closer still. The figure looks up then, their eyes wide with panic. There's recognition in their gaze, but it's not the same recognition I had when I first walked into the motel. It's the recognition of resignation. You're the keeper, aren't you? They ask, their voice trembling. I can't get out, can I? The words hang in the air, heavy with the weight of truth. They've realized it. The realization I had to come to, the one that took me so long to fully grasp. There's no leaving. There's no escape. There's only the cycle. The waiting. The endless, suffocating grasp of Pinewood Motel. I nod slowly. No, I say quietly. You can't leave. Not unless you understand what you are now. They stare at me, their mouth opening and closing like they're about to speak, but no words come out. I watch them, their shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. It's a sound I've heard so many times before. It's the sound of someone breaking, but it's also the sound of acceptance. Eventually, I turn to leave. The air feels thick with the weight of it all. With the weight of their realization, with the weight of my own. And then I stop. I don't turn around, but I speak, my voice barely above a whisper. Your choice is simple, I say. Stay or become part of the motel. They don't answer. They don't have to. They understand now. The cycle continues. I feel it around me, pressing in on me, wrapping around my heart like a vice. The motel knows me. It knows what I've become. It knows what I'll do. And as I close the door behind me, I hear it again. The faintest whisper, so quiet that it almost feels like it's part of the silence itself. You can never leave. Not for you. Not for anyone. The words are almost comforting now. Almost familiar. I walk down the hallway deeper into the motel. And I know in the deepest corners of my soul that this is my purpose. This is my burden. To guide those who arrive, to watch them choose. To witness their brokenness. Because Pinewood Motel is where the broken things go. And I will always be here. Waiting. Watching. Forever. I've walked these halls for so long that they've become a part of me. The walls, the rooms, the whispers. They're all woven into the fabric of who I am now. The keeper isn't just a title anymore. It's my existence. It's my role. The one I've been given whether I wanted it or not. I've seen it all, the terror, the resignation, the hopelessness. Each soul that comes through that door, each one that asks the same question, how do I get out? But they never understand. No one ever does. The moment they step into Pinewood Motel, they are already lost. I am the keeper of their fate, the keeper of this place. And I've come to accept that there is no escape for me. No way out. Not anymore. There is only the endless waiting, the endless watching. The sound of footsteps echoes in the hall. Another soul. Another lost wanderer. I hear them approach, but I don't need to see them. I know the pattern. I know the look in their eyes. They're lost. Confused. They're looking for an answer that I cannot give them. I stand outside room 3, the room where I first realized the truth about this place. I hesitate for a moment, the weight of my role pressing down on me. I could open the door. I could let them in, let them see what I've seen. Let them make the same choice I made. But that choice, it was mine. I can't make it for them. I take a deep breath and turn the doorknob. Inside, the room is empty. As always, it's a cold, sterile space. The walls are bare, the bed neatly made, the air thick with the weight of 1,000 unanswered questions. The light flickers overhead just enough to create a faint sense of movement in the stillness. But something is different this time. There's a presence here. Not a soul, not a person, but a feeling. A sensation. Something that has never been here before. It's the feeling of finality. Of completion. I can feel the pull of it like the motel itself is drawing me in. It knows. It knows that my time is coming to an end. It's almost as if the very walls are whispering to me, telling me that the cycle is about to close. I step further into the room and the temperature drops. A chill runs through my body, not just from the cold, but from something deeper. Something older. The door behind me slams shut with a deafening crash. The room plunges into darkness, the light above me flickering one last time before it fades completely. In the silence, I hear it. The whisper. You've waited long enough. The door has closed. There's no way out. Not for you. Not for anyone. The words echo through my mind, resonating in the very core of my being. The truth. The final truth. I've been here so long. I've watched so many come and go. I've guided the lost souls through the halls, watched them make their choices. But I've never truly accepted it. Not until now. I was one of them once. I was lost just like the others. I thought I could escape. I thought I could outrun the darkness. But I was wrong. Pinewood Motel was never a place. It was a test. Prison. And I've become a part of it. I understand now. The cycle was never meant to be broken. There is no escape. Not for anyone. Not for me. The walls close in, the air thick with the weight of inevitability. The shadows stretch across the room, bending and twisting in ways that defy logic. They form shapes, figures, creatures that I know all too well. I feel their presence, their cold, clammy touch. They're the ones who have come before me, the ones who are still lost, still wandering these halls. I can feel them watching me now, just as I've watched them. I can feel their despair, their fear, their resignation, and I understand. I understand because I've become one of them. I am the keeper, but I am also a part of the cycle, part of the motel. The doors have closed. There is no going back. The darkness presses in around me, and I know that my time has come. The walls of Pinewood Motel are my walls now. The hallways are my hallways. The whispers are my whispers. I have no choice. I kneel feeling the weight of everything I've become. The weight of all the souls, all the memories, all the choices. And as I close my eyes for the final time, I hear the whispers grow louder. But this time, they are not just the voices of the lost souls. They are my own voice. And as the darkness consumes me, I finally understand what it means to be the keeper. I am Pinewood Motel, and I will never leave. Not for you. Not for anyone. Because once you check in, you'll never check out. Not even me.